I never thought a humiliating challenge would lead a poor boy to an unbelievable transformation. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. My heart raced, palms sweating, as I stood in the middle of the crowded cafeteria. The lights flickered overhead, shadows danced like whispers around me. Everyone was staring. Their eyes, like daggers, pierced through my skin. I felt so small. In that moment, I was just Danny, the boy who couldn't afford new shoes. The worn laces dangled, mocking me. The laughter erupted around meth, kind that rises from insecure teens desperate to feel bigger by making others smaller. It hit me like a cold splash of water, drowning my hopes. I clenched my teeth, fighting back tears. My friends, those who once stood beside me, had backed away. They wanted to blend in, to escape the harsh spotlight. The air was thick with disbelief, the murmurs wrapping around me, suffocating. What's he going to do? He's going to fail. Mockery filled their voices. A lump formed in my throat, heavy and painful. I could feel it choking me. But there I stood, on that makeshift table in the middle of the cafeteria, facing my own fears. I looked at the principal, his expression unreadable. A strange silence fell, broken only by the twitch of a nervous boy's lip, my lip. Then the challenge was thrown, dance, Danny. Show us what you've got. Could I really? The world blurred around me. I didn't want to be that boy, the one who couldn't conquer this ridiculous challenge. I could feel my heart beating in my throat, each thump screaming at me to run. But deep in the pit of my stomach, a tiny spark of defiance flickered. I thought of my mom, who never missed a chance to remind me of my worth. I thought of the nights we sat by candlelight, listening to her stories of heroes and legends. I took a breath. The scent of fries and fear filled the air. I could do this. I had to. I closed my eyes, letting the moment wash over meth longing, the hope. Trembling hands reached for the invisible strings of courage and I opened my mouth. Music poured into my soul, filling all the empty spaces. Would they laugh? Would they see? I started, my movements awkward but real. The rhythm wrapped around me, the crowd silencing. For a second, I was free. I danced and something in me began to transform. But just as the energy peaked, a loud crash interrupted. Everyone turned. Eyes widened in shock. The principal's face turned pale. My heart stopped. What had happened? I froze in mid-move. An unnerving sensation spiraled inside me. What would they say now? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference, let's connect. The cafeteria erupted into chaos, the once eager laughter fading into gasps and scattered screams. My body remained rigid, caught in that moment as the world around me spun. Above the din, I heard Ida shattering echo, glass meeting floor. I turned, panic clawing at my insides, and saw Tommy, my once closest ally, sprawled next to the soda machine, arms shielding his face. His glasses lay broken beside him, the heavy shadows beneath his eyes betraying a mix of shock and embarrassment. In that split second, the laughter morphed into something else: concern. Tommy! I shouted, the rhythm of my earlier dance fading. I stumbled across the cafeteria, my heart racing for an entirely different reason now. Students rushed to help, but I pushed past them, kneeling beside him. Are you okay? He looked at me with wide, frightened eyes, the kind I had worn moments ago. I tripped, he stammered, shame coloring his cheeks. His hands trembled as he attempted to gather the scattered shards of his glasses, fragments of a friendship that felt more fragile with each passing second. Let me help, I said, finding some clarity in the chaos. I gently reached out and picked up the larger pieces. It's just an accident. You didn't mean to. You're fine, but he didn't respond. Instead, he just stared, the color of disbelief washing over him. I wondered if he realized how similar we were in that moment, both lost boys, trying desperately to find footing in a world that laughed at our misfortunes. You were brave, you know, he finally mumbled, the skepticism lingering in his voice. Most wouldn't have danced, but I hesitated. My heartbeat slowed as my gaze flickered back to our peers. They were still watching, their attention shifting away from the embarrassment of my dance to the startling scene before them. Some looked on with pity, others with glee, and I couldn't bear the thought of being at the center of it all again. But you fell that I fell, he echoed, a bitter smile threading his lips. Yeah, I guess we both did, huh? The cafeteria door swung open, and in walked Mrs. Chang, the drama teacher, her usual confident stride faltering as she took in the scene. I could see the worry in her eyes, recognition of lost potential amidst frustration. She rushed over, her presence somewhat calming. What happened? Just an accident, I said quickly, pushing down the swell of embarrassment rising in me again. Right, Tommy, he nodded, albeit reluctantly, and as Mrs. Chang crouched beside us, I could feel my personal storm still raging, the lingering fear of what had just taken place, how I had exposed a part of myself to everyone, and how they would interpret that. I wasn't ready for their judgment again. Moments passed, and I caught flashes of people whispering behind cupped hands. I felt Tommy's eyes on me, just as they had been when we had played in the park long ago, dreaming of becoming something bigger than ourselves when neither of us had cared about popularity or shoes. Listen, Mrs. Chang said, drawing my focus, you both showed immense courage today. That doesn't go unnoticed. She looked specifically at me. It takes a true artist to bring emotion into their work. Danny, your dance, it was something. Shocking, maybe, but it was real. Her words ignited a flicker of hope, an ember in the darkness where I had allowed fear to flood in. But what if they don't understand? What if they just laugh at me now? I whispered, glancing nervously at the crowd that still pointed and gawked. You can't control how they react, she said softly. But you can choose to rise above it. Be brave enough to be yourself. Dancing could be the start of a liberation you didn't know you needed. That sentiment struck a chord deep inside me. It felt like a promise wrapped in a veil of possibility. I looked back at Tommy, who was rubbing a hand against his knee, still lost in self-doubt. Hey, let's work on something together, okay? We could join the drama club and maybe even put on a dance show. Show them it's not about falling, it's about how we get back up. He lifted his gaze at that, hope flickering in his expression. You think? Can I? After this, I think you can. We both can, I said, my voice stronger than it had been a moment ago, but just as a smile began to grace his features, the principal stepped toward us, his brow furrowed in concern. Danny, we need to talk. The finality in his voice sent dread racing through me as I realized this wasn't an innocent conversation but the looming shadow of reprimand. It felt as if the ground shifted beneath my feet. As I stood, the whispers intensified, my heart pounding in my chest, fear threatening to rise again. What would this mean for me? Would I have the courage to pull through, or was this the precipice of my downfall? Danny, Tommy called just before I turned away, just remember, it's not how we fall. It's what we choose to do after. With those words echoing in my mind, I faced the unknown, alone. Each step toward the principal was heavy, like dragging boulders. And just when I thought this day couldn't get any worse, my phone buzzed in my pocket, a notification. I glanced at it quickly, heart plummeting as I saw it was a message from someone I hadn't spoken to in years. A name long buried but fearfully familiar, Mia. And the text read, "We need to talk. It's important. I have something to tell you." All my courage swayed as a flood of memories crashed against me, and dread crept in again. What could possibly be so important after all this time? What did she want? I glanced back at Tommy, looked at Mrs. Chang, then at everyone's piercing eyes upon me, the tumble of expected answers weighing upon my shoulders. I took a deep breath, barely steadying myself for what lay ahead, a revelation that might change everything. The principal's voice melded with the ambient chatter of the cafeteria as I approached him, each step resonating like a slow drumbeat in my chest. Tension twisted in the air, thick enough to choke on. I could see snippets of Tommy's hopeful expression fade like a distant mirage as uncertainty slithered back into my heart. "Danny," the principal began, brow creased with a mix of concern and authority. "Let's step outside for a moment." As we moved past the gathering crowd's piercing stares, I felt a shared pulse among the onlookers, their whispers wove into a tapestry threaded with my name, thickening the air around me. I was not just a spectator, I was a performance in progress, watched yet unseen. "Honestly, Danny, I'm concerned about your behavior during the assembly," he said, once we were out of earshot. His tone shifted, a strange blend of disappointment and understanding. "You showcased vulnerability that could have gone unrecognized if not for the unfortunate incident with Tommy." That I swallowed hard, unable to respond with anything but silence, weighed down by shame. It was his job to scold, to discipline, but what I'd laid bare felt like galvanizing courage, not misbehavior. "You must understand how this reflects on you," he continued, crossing his arms. "Your emotional expression should be channeled more constructively. We need to avoid distractions like this. How do you see yourself moving forward?" There were so many things I wanted to say, so many hues I wished to paint across the blank canvas he offered me. But fear stifled my voice like a vice. I had just begun to understand my own feelings through the dance, how raw and beautiful it could be, but now all I could envision was how quickly that beauty could turn to ridicule. "Point two, just want it to be real," I managed to mutter, my eyes flitting to the ground as embarrassment gripped me again. "Being real doesn't justify reckless behavior," he replied, the warmth fading from his eyes. "You need to channel this passion into something that uplifts you and others without drawing unwanted attention." That I nodded, biting the inside of my cheek, hoping he would find my silence as compliant, when inside I felt the surge of doubt creeping back. What, precisely, was I worthy of? How could I convey my truth without falling prey to judgment? As the meeting concluded with a warning instead of the punishment I half expected, a sliver of relief washed over me. I stepped back inside the cafeteria, but the emotions swirling inside were far from calm. As I scanned the room, I noticed Tommy at the table, picking at his lunch, avoiding eye contact with anyone. That I couldn't let the moment dissipate. With a renewed sense of purpose, I moved toward him. "Hey, you okay?" I asked softly, his eyes lifted, still clouded with uncertainty. "I don't know, Danny. I mean, does anyone ever really get over something like that?" He gestured broadly, indicating the remnants of the embarrassment we both shared. "It's okay to feel like this." "I do, too," I replied, daring to sit beside him. "But what if we don't let it dictate who we become? What if we do the opposite?" He raised his eyebrow, intrigued yet hesitantly skeptical. "Like how?" "Let's practice together," I proposed. "Dance or act or both, whatever it takes. Let's show everyone that even when we stumble, it leads us to something greater." He regarded me seriously, the shadows in his eyes slowly lifting as some of the weight cleared from his shoulders. "What if they laugh? So what?" I counters. "That's their problem. If we believe in what we do, then those giggles only spark jealousy, not pity. And at least we tried, right?" Tommy was quiet for a moment, considering. "You really think we could turn this into something good?" "Yeah, I do," I said. "More than good. I think we could inspire others to be brave, too. If Mrs. Chong is right about art, then let's make it ours." A tentative smile crept across his face, growing more assured with every word I said. "All right, I'm in." Just then, the buzz of my phone jolted me from our budding mutual resolve. It was a reminder, a conflict emerging from my past, the name pulling at me like a magnet. I have a message I need to reply to," I said, suddenly conflicted, my heart beating faster. "From who?" Tommy asked, glancing curiously. That I hesitated and bit my lip. "An old friend, someone I hadn't spoken to in years." His expression shifted, curiosity mingling with concern. Is it someone from the past you want to revisit or someone who brings complications? I didn't even know how to answer that question. Just then, the cafeteria doors burst open, and everyone's eyes turned toward the entrance. The mood shifted in an instant. The room held its breath as Mia walked in, radiant and determined. That my heart plummeted. She caught my gaze and, with one grave look, it was as if the chaotic crashing of all my insecurities met the ground, ready to erupt again. Danny. She called, her voice cutting through the thick tension. We need to talk. It's important. And as everyone turned to watch, my feeling of hope began to plummet, replaced by a fear I hadn't anticipated. Would this be the moment that changed everything? The cafeteria was a buzzing hive of murmurs and glances, each face a reflection of my spiraling apprehension. Mia stood at the entrance, a beacon illuminating the shadows I thought I had begun to escape. The way she called my name, urgent yet somehow laced with a softness, felt like both an invitation and a condemnation. Important. The word tasted bitter on my tongue as I looked between her and Tommy, whose expression mirrored my own confusion. What could be so important that it couldn't wait until after lunch? Mia stepped forward, and the crowd instinctively parted, captivated by her presence. Danny, please. Just can we talk privately? I promise it's not what you think. Panic choked me. I glanced back at Tommy, whose hopeful gaze from just moments ago was now overshadowed by worry. I wanted to reassure him, to tell him that this was just another opportunity to confront my past, but the weight of Mia's gaze pulled me away. Okay, I finally muttered, my feet dragging beneath me as I followed her outside the cafeteria. The corridor felt oddly muted, the raucous chatter fading into the background as silence enveloped us. Mia leaned against the wall, taking a breath as if steeling herself for a confession. Danny, I didn't want to come back here like this. Her voice trembled, and for a fleeting moment, we were suspended in the warmth of shared memories, the laughter, the secrets, the dreams. What do you mean like this? I thought after everything, we agreed to put it behind us. The sharpness in my voice surprised even me, revealing how deeply her mere presence rattled my composure. I know. But things have changed. I've changed. There are people who want to hurt you, Danny. Her words hung in the air like smoke, filled with urgency. And it's not just bashful gossip. It's worse. That my mind raced with 100 scenarios. Faced with the prospect of revisiting a time that I thought I could escape, a wave of dismay crashed over me. What do you mean worse? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Remember? She hesitated, swallowing hard. Remember when we were kids, how some people used to tease you about your dancing? That isn't just fading into memories. They still hold grudges. Some people don't forget, and they want to take you down. That I felt ice pooling in my stomach. The recollection of those taunts by so-called friends, the ridicule that sprang from envy, surfaced like a flood. Why now? Why tell me this? Is it just to make me anxious? Her eyes softened, conflicting emotions swirling within them as she took a step closer. No, Danny. I want to help. Look, there's this group that's been spreading rumors about you. Stalking you. It's serious, and I didn't know how to reach out until now. Who? The word slipped from my lips, heavy with fear and dread. The same people from before, the ones who used to. Mia choked, seemingly desperate to shield me from the memories. They're back, and they've grown more dangerous. I thought if I could break away from their grasp, so could you. But now I'm scared for you. Just then, a shadow flickered in the corner of my eye, a figure watching from down the hall. My heart raced, muscles tensing as I turned to see a familiar face, the one I thought I could forget. Danny, it's not safe, we need to. Mia urged again, but my feet wouldn't budge as I locked eyes with the intruder. I felt the world tilt, plunging me into the depths of panic. Christian. I whispered, still reeling from the shock. Hadn't I hoped to leave him behind, along with all the hurt and shame he'd dealt me? Thought I'd find you here, he sneered, stepping forward with a predatory grace that sent a chill through my body. Nice dance moves you displayed the other day, losing your balance in front of everyone. Quite the spectacle. Each word felt like a dagger, pulling my fragile reconstruction of confidence apart. I glanced at Mia, whose really mesmerizing courage sparked in the face of my past trauma. She looked ready to defend me, but I felt paralyzed, drowning in the moment. And just then, as if the universe conspired to heighten the tension, a sound erupted from the cafeteria, sharp commotion that swayed the ears of everyone nearby. Laughter mixed with panic, a storm building inside. "Time to go, Danny," she urged again, her eyes darting to the commotion behind me. "We need to get away from here before it escalates." Yet before I could respond, before I could fully grasp the enormity of MIA's warning, I caught a glimpse of the assembly's audience filtering out, whispers growing louder, faces recording the scene like we were part of a tragic play. Mia stood poised to defend me, but for the first time since I'd begun to confront my fears, I felt the weight of anger coiling within me. Anger at Christian, anger at the judgment I had endured, and a newfound rage against the idea of being silenced once again. "Get out of my way, Christian!" I snapped, the words punching through the fog of my insecurity, igniting a fire I didn't know I had. In that moment, so many things felt at stake: the echoes of past ridicule, the fear of the future lurking in shadows, and my relationship with Tommy now teetering on the edge. Would our hope lead us to self-discovery, or would it be overturned by the darkness I thought I had left behind? But as Christian opened his mouth, and the murmurs around us crescendoed into something chaotic, I realized that perhaps standing up wasn't just about facing my bullies. It was about confronting everything inside me that held me back, and just as the tide turned, I knew that even in this moment of despair, there was a chance at transformation. In the eye of the storm, something within me roared, a daring to change and a determination to finally dance to my own rhythm. And yet, the cliffhanger loomed over my heart, tugging at the strings of uncertainty. Would I become the boy willing to reclaim his story, or would I become yet another chapter in someone else's narrative of shame and hurt? My heart raced as my gaze locked onto Christian's, a mix of fury and defiance surging within me. The cafeteria rumbled behind us, chaos and laughter mingling into an overwhelming backdrop. It felt like the universe, in its cruel playfulness, was thrusting me back into a spotlight I had fought so hard to escape. "Danny," Mia's voice broke through the clamor, urgent but steady. "Focus. We need to leave now." "Leave? Why should I?" I shot back, my voice cracking, yet imbued with a newfound strength. "I didn't do anything wrong. This is my place too." Christian scoffed, taking a step closer, his imposing figure eclipsing the last remnants of my hesitation. But rather than retreating, I felt a rush of accomplishment, as if reclaiming a lost part of myself. "Don't you dare try to intimidate me. I'm not afraid of you anymore." "Not afraid? Look where that got you last time," he retorted, his grin insinuating he had already won. But beneath the surface, I sensed a tremor in his confidence. Something had shifted, and I was no longer a pawn in his game. "Enough, Christian," Mia interjected, her voice cutting through the tempest of memories gingerly. "This isn't just about you and Danny anymore. You're threatening him, and that's not a game anymore." The declaration hung there, and for a moment, the crowd shifted, faced with a choice: would they silence the boy who had once been so easily dismissed, or would they stand with him? But then I heard whispers, like a ripple of uncertainty among the spectators. "Is that the boy who lost his dance? Didn't he used to be the joke of the school?" Murmurs traveled like wildfire, crackling over the charged air, pricking at any last vestige of my confidence. The familiar sting of betrayal knotted in my chest, every word echoed the very wounds I had tried so hard to heal. Mia noticed my faltering, and in that moment, she stepped in front of me. "Enough, everyone. It's 2023, and bullying isn't a trend to follow. Let the past die with your ignorance." Her fierce words stirred something within me, a fragile ember of hope that glowed amid a storm of self-doubt. But it wasn't enough. Despite all my efforts, despite MIA's bravery, I could feel Christian's looming presence suffocating any flicker of new light. "He's broken," Christian spat, the venom in his voice searing, the kind aimed to tear apart anyone lingering in the brief shadows of insecurity. And for a brief moment, I felt myself slip back into the past, the hopelessness drowning me. But then Mia turned, her eyes blazing with an unwavering resolve. "Danny isn't broken. He's healing. And that's more than you ever were capable of." Her defense stung him, but also ignited something deep within me. In the midst of the madness, I remembered the countless hours spent honing my movements, the support from my teachers, and Tommy's hand in mine during those skeletal moments of doubt. I made a decision, a choice born out of love for myself and for everyone watching me. If you think you can keep me from dancing, think again. This is my moment, my stage. You may have stolen parts of my life before, but I won't let you rob me again. Before I could second-guess myself, I raised my arms, envisioning the spotlight spilling down upon me, the rhythm flooding my senses. The world around me faded, and with each beat echoing through my mind, I let go of my remorse and embraced the music of resilience within me. Mia, join me. I called, my words reverberating through the still air. To my surprise, she stepped in sync, her movement graceful, as if she had always belonged there by my side in this dance of defiance. We swayed in defiance of judgment, embodying a story that was uniquely ours, drawing courage from the unlikeliest of places, igniting sparks of hope in the faces that watched. Yet, just as I moved into the crescendo, Christian's laughter broke like shattered glass, unleashing a final threat. This isn't over, Danny. I'll make sure to remind you of your place. Sweat dripped from my brow as I spun away, unsteadied by the rotating anticipation of the crowd's eyes and Christian's words threatening my resolve. In that chaotic whirl, I caught a glimpse of Tommy standing by the cafeteria doors, alarm plastered across his face, uncertainty churning, a storm brewing right where he stood, and it hit me like a punch to the stomach. I hadn't just inseparably intertwined Mia into a dance of revolution, I might have just risked my relationship with Tommy. Would he see my defiance as strength or as a foolish display stoked by my past? The rhythm faltered just for a moment, and doubt clouded my mind. As the music faded into tense silence, a voice from the crowd asked, "Is he really who he says he is? Or is he just pretending?" The question settled over me like a weight, clinging and suffocating, dragging me back to the brink of despair. Would my drive to reclaim my story unite me with those I cherished, or would it tear us apart under the weight of expectations and legacy? And as I stood there, engulfed in uncertainty and a wave of unsettled emotions, one thought pulsed through my mind like a frantic heartbeat: would I ever truly be free to dance my own path? The cafeteria was still, the weight of silence creeping in like a blanket smothering an open flame. One could almost hear the collective inhalation of breath as the last echoes of my words hung in the air, a palpable tension brewing beneath the surface. I stood rooted to the spot, caught between the echoes of doubt and the tentative hope that had ignited my heart just moments ago. Tommy was still at the door, his expression a mixture of confusion and concern. I felt as if the entire world had become a glass bowl, each gaze directing its full weight upon me, prodding at my vulnerabilities. I took a small step forward, but my resolve was shaky. Would he feel betrayed? Would he think I had dishonored the quiet battles we had fought side by side? Then Mia, sensing my isolation, took my hand in hers and squeezed. The warmth of her grip spread through me, a reminder that I wasn't alone, that I had allies, at least for the moment. "You're not broken, Danny," she whispered fiercely. "Not now, not ever." With her words resonating, I shifted my focus slightly, catching Tommy's eyes once again. He didn't move, he seemed fixed in place, fighting against something inside him. I wanted to reach for him, to show him that I hadn't betrayed the November promise we made to stand strong together. But I was also terrified of the darkness, what I could lose if this moment spiraled any further into chaos. And then came another voice, soothing yet intrusive, slicing through the stillness. "You guys are ridiculous." Rebecca, one of the school's unnoticed underdogs, stepped forward, a fierce glint in her eye. "We all know Danny has more guts than all of you put together. So what if he wants to dance?" Her voice grew louder, as if drawing strength from the moment. "Better to own who you are than to hide behind petty insults." Christian's laugh erupted again, but it was weaker this time, chopped off by what felt like a growing wave of unity among the students. With every supportive gasp, every nod of agreement, the walls of hostility began to falter. It became evident that the tide was shifting. Some students, perhaps those who had once rallied behind Christian, were now stepping away from him, inching closer towards the inkling of camaraderie that illuminated Mia and me. "What are you going to do about it?" Christian sneered, attempting to reclaim power in a storm losing its wind. Are you all really going to stand here and applaud mediocrity? Then, from somewhere within the crowd, a small voice piped up. At least he's trying. It was James, the quiet boy from math class, who had spent years watching from the sidelines, more familiar with the currents of high school cruelty than the comfort of friendship. Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing? Helping each other rise, instead of keeping each other down. Somber whispers rose around us, echoing admiration for James' conviction, weaving a network of solidarity that felt new and fragile and full of potential. I looked at Mia, whose eyes were glimmering with pride, and then at Tommy, who seemed lost, the confusion etched on his face dissipating slightly. There was hope blooming, even in the midst of the struggle, like flowers stubbornly breaking through the asphalt. But even as the atmosphere shifted, I felt the ground beneath me tremble. Would this newfound courage come crashing down under scrutiny? Would it be enough against someone as ruthless as Christian? In the heart of my hope, I could still feel the gnawing fear, the fear of failing not just me but all those who stood by me, believing in something greater than the constraints we had worn like a second skin. Danny! Mia shouted suddenly, her voice slicing through my spiraling thoughts. I blinked back at her, pulling myself from the fray of my inner turmoil. Dance! Show them your truth. The rhythm of music began to unravel in the corners of my mind, and I remembered the moves, the flow, the way my body felt like air when I danced freely without shackles of doubt. I breathed in deeply, allowing the pulse of hope to push through the weight of fear. You're right, I whispered back. And in that moment, amidst the chaos, I found a kernel of strength awakening within me that I stepped closer to the center, feeling all eyes upon me again, not with scorn, perhaps, but with something that might linger between admiration and curiosity. Drawing in the music that surged through my veins, I let my body move, tentative at first, hesitant like a seed peeking out from the earth, but then something extraordinary happened. Amidst the murmurings of judgment, I caught a glimpse of Tommy's encouraging smile spreading across his face, molten warmth sparking within me. I moved deeper into the dance, and with every flick and swing, I could see the crowd begin to sway with my rhythm. Laughter mixed with applause began to erupt, an unexpected chorus lifting me, enveloping me in a momentary sanctuary, but just as I spun toward the crescendo, that familiar voice of terror crept back in, dulcet yet haunting. A revelation chipped at my newfound strength, sending shards of doubt cascading through. What if Christian wasn't finished? What if there was something more tangled into our shared past that awaited, a stark reminder that darkness often loomed when one felt most alive, in that heart-stopping moment filled with laughter and rhythm, with hope blossoming but fear creeping just below. I realized the path wasn't just about the dance. It was about confronting every facet of my truth, the laughter, the joy, and the shadows of trauma that could break me if I let them. The last note of the music faded, but my heart raced on, a dissonance swirling within me, leaving unanswered questions floating in the echoes. Could I really break free? Would the next step lead me closer to the freedom I craved, or could it plunge me into something darker that I hadn't anticipated? As the applause swelled around me, my heart pounded, teetering on the precipice of hope and fear. What was to come would demand an even greater leap of faith, but I couldn't let my spirit falter, not now, not when I finally felt alive. And then came the chilling realization that sent a shiver down my spine. In the heart of this small victory, I hadn't just danced to reclaim my story but perhaps stirred a more extensive and terrifying transformation poised to unravel everything I had ever known. Would I have the strength to face it? Or would the tide that felt like hope wash me away? The cacophony of applause filled the air, but even as I basked in that fleeting moment of triumph, an uneasy gnawing settled in the pit of my stomach. My hands trembled, and I wiped my brow with the back of my sleeve, feeling the heat of the cafeteria, a million hearts beating in rhythm with my own. But somewhere within that wild energy, a shadow lurked, one I couldn't ignore. I glanced over at Tommy, who wore a strained smile. His eyes flickered with something unnameable, doubt, fear, perhaps jealousy. I held my breath, wondering if I had lost him in the very act of trying to find myself. And then, as if coaxed by an unseen force, he turned away, scuffling towards the exit. The soft whisper of his sneakers on linoleum was drowned out by the roaring crowd around me. Tommy! I called after him, but he was already gone, slipping through the fluorescent light like a ghost. Mia cast a concerned glance my way, her smile faltering before she moved to follow him. I felt the ground shift beneath my feet, the fleeting exhilaration dissipating, replaced by an acute sense of loss and confusion. "Hey, you did amazing." Rebecca re-emerged, her wild curls bouncing with enthusiasm. "Seriously, I knew you had it in you." That was real. A hollow laughter escaped my lips. "Yeah, amazing until my best friend runs out on me." She bit her lip, the color draining from her face. "He'll be back. Just give him a moment." I wanted to believe her, but I couldn't shake off the feeling that I had pulled a thread too tightly. In the effort to weave my truth, had I inadvertently unraveled our bond? The cafeteria started to empty, students drifting back into the reality of their lives, leaving me behind, exposed and raw. Mia returned, her face a portrait of concern. "He's gone," I said quietly, the weight of those simple words crashing over us like a tsunami. "He didn't even want to look back." She wrapped her arms around me, and I leaned into her embrace, struggling to hold back the swell of tears that threatened to spill over. "You did something brave in there, Danny," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "He just needs time." But as comforting as her words were, they felt like quicksand. Was bravery enough? I allowed myself to lean into her warmth, letting the shelter of her presence anchor me, but a part of me remained adrift in the storm of my thoughts. I was terrified of what might come next. The darkness had a way of weaving through our lives, wrapping its tendrils around even the brightest moments. As evening descended and shadows crept across the school grounds, I sat on the tattered bleachers outside, the air thickening with a heavy silence that felt almost oppressive. The echoes of my dance lingered in the distance, a reminder of the joy that felt so far away now. I flicked through my messages on my phone, hoping for a sign from Tommy, anything that would quell the fear gnawing at my insides. But the screen remained blank. Just when I thought I might succumb to the anxiety bubbling inside me, the soft sound of footsteps approached. "Danny?" It was James, the quiet boy whose voice had resonated through the silence only earlier that day. He sat beside me, the weight of his presence steadying an urge to flee. "That was something else in there. I guess so," I replied, forcing a smile. But it wasn't enough to keep my best friend from leaving. "He'll come around," James stated, his tone more resolute than I expected. "You deserve to live your truth, Danny. Don't let anyone or anything take that away." His words hung in the air as hope battled against despair. "Thanks," I murmured. "I think we all just need to figure out where we stand." Suddenly, a flicker caught my attention. A group of students appeared at the far end, their laughter but a facade cloaking the weight they bore. I recognized Christian among them, his usual confidence marred by what could only be described as concern. He was speaking animatedly, gesticulating wildly, and it sent a chill through me. "Do you think you will keep pushing?" I whispered to James, a knot tightening in my stomach. "Do you think he'll come after me?" "What if he won't?" "Not if you stand strong. Not if you continue dancing." But as I watched Christian sneer, I couldn't help but harbor the worry that perhaps I had unwittingly provoked a predator, one who was determined to regain control. Transcending the boundaries of typical high school dynamics, I now felt entangled in something darker. "I'm scared," I admitted, my voice trembling. "What if I can't do this? What if it all falls apart?" James shifted closer, his shoulder brushing mine. "Then we do it together. You're not alone, Danny. No matter what happens, you have people who stand with you." His quiet conviction mingled with my anxiety, creating an odd sense of companionship. But the warmth of his words turned icy when, without warning, I saw Tommy's figure reappear in the distance, hesitation marring his features, as he approached. My heart raced. Was this the moment of mending, or was he merely returning to further the chasm between us? As he stepped closer, I felt the atmosphere sharpen with anticipation. Would he reach out, or would I lose him completely? There was a heaviness in the air, thick with unspoken thoughts, regrets, and the challenges we had yet to face. The dance of bravery I had begun felt less like an awakening and more like a descent into a labyrinthine struggle, and just as I dared to hope, a shocking realization struck me. Had if Christian planned to expose my story, to use it against me in the most humiliating way possible. I clenched my fists, caught in the tense spiral between possibility and impending doom. No longer just a boy seeking acceptance, I stood on the edge of transformation, with the question looming overhead, would I emerge whole, or would I drown in the chaos? The air hung heavy with unspoken words as Tommy approached, his eyes shifting from mine to the ground between us like they were afraid to meet. I held my breath, caught in a moment that felt stretched like taffy. The tension crackled around us, making every heartbeat resonate like a drum. James sensed the unfolding drama and subtly excused himself, leaving me alone with the very essence of my unraveling friendship. "Hey," Tommy finally managed, his voice a thin whisper amidst the chaos of my thoughts. I searched his face for signs of his inner turmoil, skimming over the lines of worry etched across his brow. "Hey." The word fell from my lips like a pebble skipping over waterlight, but unable to sink deep. I needed to clear my head," he said, taking a tentative step closer, his hands clenched tightly in his pockets like he was afraid of what would come next. "After I saw you out there, it hit me hard. I wasn't prepared for all that." "Neither was I confessed, the words tumbling out as if they had been coiled and waiting for just the right moment. "But Tommy, I never meant to." My voice faltered, the fear of drowning in disappointment choking my throat. "To make you feel any less than important." He looked away, staring into the distance like it held the answers we both needed. "It's not just jealousy, Danny. It's complicated. I guess I just thought that I'd always be the one cheering on the sidelines." A lump formed in my throat, and all at once, the weight of unspoken fears clashed inside me. "And now that I've stepped into the light, you think there's no room for you?" Tommy met my gaze finally, his eyes somber yet searching. "Exactly. What if I'm just here to watch while you soar?" A surge of emotion welled up, threatening to push the boundaries of our shared space further. "You're not just a spectator. You're my best friend. None of this means anything if I don't have you beside me. You're part of my story, Tommy. Always." He took a deep breath, and in that moment, I could see him grappling with his own demons. "But what if your story takes you somewhere I can't follow?" The vulnerability in his voice struck a chord within me, a haunting echo of my own fear. I could feel the tremors of uncertainty ripple between us, bridging the gap that had widened in the wake of my newfound courage. "Then we make a new story together," I urged, fighting against the tide of growing distance. "We're stronger united, Tommy, and I need you to understand that." Before he could respond, our intimate world erupted with laughter from the group of students nearby, the sound harsh against the backdrop of our fragile moment. I turned instinctively, catching the tail end of Christian's voice cutting through the air, fueled by bravado as he delivered some cruel punchline that had the others in stitches. "Look at the acrobat, everyone. Hope he doesn't snap his little ballerina legs." He jeered, his eyes darting towards me, brimming with malice. A cold sweat rushed through me, trailing icy fingers down my spine. Just as I felt my heart clench, I caught a glimpse of James stepping back onto the scene, anger radiating from him like a flame ignited. "Christian, that's enough," he shouted, taking a protective stance in front of me. "Why do you get off on making everyone feel small?" The laughter died abruptly, a tension replaced the mirthful atmosphere, suffocating the air. For a brief moment, I felt a rush of gratitude towards James, a flicker of hope against the storm bearing down on me. But a darker shadow loomed behind Christian as he shook off the momentary threat of confrontation, regaining his composure. "You think you can defend him? Please. Your little friend here is on borrowed time." "Just a moment lost in a fantasy," Christian sneered, his words laced with venom that soaked into the fabric of my insecurities. "What fantasy? That I could be happy? That I could dance? Is that really so wrong?" I shot back, anger igniting my nerves, fueling the flames of something I had nearly extinguished in the face of doubt. Christian took a step towards me, closing the distance as though he was a predator ready to pounce. You think this is just about you dancing? You're stepping into a world where people care about power, not dreams. This is all part of a game, and you're losing that. A chill settled over me, the weight of his words threatening to drag me into a pit of despair. But before I could spiral, I glanced at Tommy, who still hovered close, caught between wanting to shield me and the fear of the repercussions. Just you wait, Danny, Christian continued, his tone now dangerously low. As you climb to the top on someone else's back, they'll be right here watching. And then you'll wish you stayed in your lane. With that, he turned away, fragmenting the confrontation like shattered glass. Laughter erupted again among his friends, isolating me within a whirlwind of emotions that had spun violently out of control. In that moment, a gust of wind rushed past, the gust swirling around me like the chaos of my thoughts, whispering uncertain promises of acceptance and companionship, and yet comprising disparate elements of fear and doubt. We should go, Tommy said gently, his voice laced with empathy. Yes, I agreed, though my heart lay heavy against the hope I had clung to moments before. As we stepped away from the din, the faces of my peers shifting from support to judgment flashed in my mind. I felt my resolve fray and thicken, tangled in the uncertainties of love, friendship, and acceptance. The night's shadows stretched like fingers grasping at my sanity, and just as I prepared to brace myself for the tumult that lay ahead, my phone pinged again. The light illuminated the screen, and I froze, my breath hitching at the realization of who it was. An unexpected name flashed across the notification, and my heart dropped. What if this message was the tipping point to my undoing? The world around me blurred as I stared, paralyzed by the fear of what might lie within those words. The laughter faded into the distance, swallowed by the encroaching gloom of the evening. I stood rooted in place, riveted by the message haunting my screen like an ominous specter. My thumb hovered over the notification, a shiver coursing through me as I considered the implications of opening it. Are you okay? Tommy asked, his voice laced with concern. He placed a tentative hand on my shoulder, grounding me in that moment. I don't know, I stammered, still transfixed. It's from my dad. Tommy's brow furrowed, understanding the weight those words carried. My dad's involvement had always been complicated, each interaction a carefully threaded needle that could either mend or rupture. Do you want me to stay? He asked softly, his voice barely above a whisper. I met his gaze and saw not only concern but a deep-rooted loyalty, the kind that fueled the very core of our bond. It struck me then that it wasn't just my journey, it was ours. Yeah, I need you here, I said, my voice steadier now, as if admitting I needed him reignited something within me. With a deep breath, I tapped the notification, the anticipation making my heart race. The screen blinked to life, revealing words that felt cold against my skin. Danny, we need to talk. I've heard things. Are you really reaching for this dream? Gear yup, it won't be easy. It felt like a slap to the face. Was this what encouragement had come to? I could almost hear the slight tremor in his tone that echoed years of exerting control over my aspirations. Against the backdrop of Christian's taunts, a cascade of memories rushed in, each one complicating the reality of my relationship with my father. Tommy read the tension painted across my face, his hand still resting on my shoulder. What's he saying? With a shaky breath, I replied, he thinks I'm chasing a fantasy. That I'm being foolish. Maybe he doesn't understand, Tommy said, his voice firm amidst my creeping fear. Maybe he doesn't see how much this means to you, but it shouldn't matter to him, I murmured, staring past the neon colors of reality to the faint embers of my passion flickering in the dark. I should want this for myself, not for his approval. The only approval you need is your own, Tommy replied, confrontational but supportive. If dancing is what makes you feel alive, then that's enough. Your feelings are valid. For a heartbeat, I felt it. A glimpse of strength, smoldering beneath my insecurities, an ember that could be nurtured into something brighter. But just when I thought I might stand a little taller, an avalanche of doubt began to bury my resolve. But without his backing, what if I really crash? Then you try again, Tommy responded, his tone unwavering. And they'll be right there beside you. In that moment, the weight of his words pressed against my chest, igniting something fierce. Beneath the shadow of my father's expectations, a small flame flickered, yearning for air that we lingered in silence as I wrestled with the conflict swirling inside me. Yet a sudden sense of determination washed over me. How could I ever find my wings if I let fear clip them? Let's take a walk. I need to clear my head, I said, surprising even myself with the steadiness of my voice. Tommy nodded, and together, we ventured away from the tumultuous environment, the air thick with uncertainty. The world transformed into a tapestry of colors and shadows, the evening sky painted with remnants of a fading sun, its beauty juxtaposed against the chaos lurking in my heart. As we strolled through the quiet paths, I felt my chest begin to unclench, the rhythmic sound of our footsteps matching my growing resolve. I shared my fears, my dreams, and my frustration with Tommy, and bit by bit, the walls shielding my vulnerability chipped away, exposing an untapped reservoir of aspiration. The corners of our journey soon led us to a secluded park, an oasis where the whispers of the trees formed a chorus of encouragement. Sweeping branches swayed gently, framing a stage that beckoned a metamorphosis. I turned to Tommy, who was smiling softly as the moonlight danced across his features. I was thinking, I began, my heart racing with something exhilarating. What if we staged a little impromptu performance? You know, just you and me. A chance to let go, to celebrate this dream without worrying about anyone else. His eyes sparkled, filled with a mix of disbelief and excitement. You really want to? Yes. It would be freeing, I declared, each word fanning the flames of possibility. Tommy nodded, a grin spreading across his face as our spirits lifted with the thrill of spontaneity. Let's do it then. You lead, and I'll follow, and just like that, the world opened up again, a canvas being prepared for an outpouring of our truths. As I moved under the expansive canopy of stars, my body began to sway. Each step, each gentle twist ignited a fire within, a visceral expression of my unyielding spirit as I cast aside my insecurity. But just as I grew bolder, relishing in the lightness of my heart, I noticed a shadow flicker at the edge of the park. My eyes locked onto the familiar figure, and my breath caught in my throat. Christian stood at the periphery, smirking, and his expression twisted with judgment. My heart plunged into despair, threatening to extinguish the fragile embers I had begun to nurture. How far would I have to go to prove myself, especially now that my old tormentor had re-emerged to witness my attempt to soar? Danny, don't let him get to you, Tommy urged as he caught my gaze, trembling with anticipation, but nothing could shield the cracking wall of my confidence fraying at the edges. In that moment, my world teetered on the brink, the inhale of hope warring with the exhale of doubt. What if turning toward my dream only led to a deeper wound? As Christian watched, ready to unleash whatever poison he had stored, uncertainty clung to me tighter than ever. And for the first time, I hesitated, caught once again between fear and the undeniable call of my own bravado. Would I choose to dance freely, or would I retreat, shackled by my past? In that moment, I felt the weight of my past and future converge, each thread of doubt screaming for me to shrink back into the shadows. Christian's presence loomed like a storm, a reminder of all the ways I had been belittled in the name of amusement. But there was also something new stirring within me, a culmination of everything I had fought through, a strength that whispered for me to reclaim my story, no matter the cost. Danny, Tommy's voice cut through the noise of uncertainty, his eyes filled with unwavering belief. This is your moment. Don't let him take it from you. The urgency in his tone rekindled the flicker of defiance smoldering deep inside me. I looked past Christian, who still hovered at the edge of the park like a predator waiting for him to falter, and met Tommy's gaze. It anchored me in a way that reminded me I wasn't alone anymore. I didn't have to fight this battle in isolation. Bracing myself, I took a step forward. The ground felt firm beneath my feet, steady, solid. I could hear the soft rustle of leaves, the gentle sigh of the wind urging me onward. I had dancers within me willing to burst forth from the constraints of fear. Gathering every ounce of defiance I possessed, I stepped into the flow. The music within me began to rise, a melody of hope and strength blending in harmony. As I danced, I poured everything, the pain, the hope, the fear into each movement. My body twisted and twirled, an eloquent declaration of freedom that resonated with every beat of my heart. The world faded, and it was just me and the music, entwined in an exquisite duet that was mine to command. I had been reclaimed, forged anew by the trials and tribulations of my journey. With each step, I felt lighter, the burdens of judgment lifting, replaced by an exhilarating sense of release, and then I heard a rhythm of applause breaking through the haze of doubt, the echoes of encouragement enveloping me like a gentle embrace. I opened my eyes to see a few faces breaking through the shadows, students who had once laughed but were now drawn to the passion woven into my dance. In that moment, I turned back to Christian, who watched with disbelief etched across his features. For the first time, he looked vulnerable. "This is my space now, Christian. I will not hide anymore," I called out, my voice ringing like a bell, piercing through his armor of mockery. Suddenly, the flicker of uncertainty dissipated in the wake of a surging tide of courage. It felt as if I laid bare my soul on the floor, inviting the world to witness my truth. Christian, in that moment, became insignificant, a shadow unable to cast darkness over my light. Tommy stepped forward, mirroring my movements, and soon enough, the small group that had gathered began to join us. It was exhilarating, a tapestry of expressions blending as everyone danced and swirled, united under the banner of bravery. Every heart pulsating with the realization that we were rebelling against the narratives that had sought to keep us in line. It wasn't just my moment anymore, it was our shared story, bursting with resilience. As the final notes lingered, and the applause enveloped us like a warm embrace, I caught sight of Mia standing by, her eyes glistening with joy. The connection among us pulsed like a lifeline, and without thinking, I beckoned her to join. She glided forward, graceful and radiant, blending her spirit with mine. Together we danced, celebrating not only my journey but the strength of friendship bolstered in our shared triumphs over the noise, and as the euphoria peaked, I could finally see Tommy, stepping forward with a tentative smile, unsure yet undeniably powerful in his willingness to join in. "I'm not just a spectator anymore," he declared, grounding my heart with this realization, his voice cascading with emotion. For once, the threads of doubt frayed completely, leaving only an unbreakable fabric woven through shared strength, love, and the realization that fear could not monopolize my life any longer. It wasn't simply about dancing, it was about confronting everything that had held me captive: the expectations, the harsh words, and every memory that had once tied me down. As laughter and joy enveloped us once more, I reached out for Tommy's hand, solid and genuine. We were no longer yoked by fear. As our fingers intertwined, it felt as though life was beginning anew, not as two separate stories but as one resilient narrative created. In that instant of liberation, I finally understood, it's not about how gracefully we dance through the storms of our lives, it's about daring to turn every heartbreak into a step forward. And as the echoes of our laughter mingled beneath the stars, I knew this was only the beginning, the reshaping of a story that belonged to all of us. A tapestry hung with hope, where courage would reign supreme in the face of adversity, and love would shine like the brightest light, guiding us down a path yet to unfold.